The Vikings and the Guardians. Long nights in Greenland were woven with tales, ancient fables of gods, colossal beasts, and tempestuous spirits lurking beneath mysterious waves. Around roaring fires, elders recounted stories of lands stretched beyond the horizon, vast realms unseen by human eyes. Some whispered of golden shores ripe for the taking, while others cautioned against cursed territories haunted by unimaginable creatures that prowled the earth. Leif Erikson, imbued with a lifelong fascination for exploration, absorbed every fable with the fervor of a child entranced by dragons. Standing at the edge of this unforgiving world, he felt the weight of the elders' words swirling around him, a fierce desire for discovery igniting an even deeper hunger within his soul. His destiny, he believed, awaited him, inscribed in the unyielding vault of the stars. Yet he had no inkling that the greatest saga of his lineage was merely on the brink of unfolding. Leif Erikson stood confidently at the prow of his longship, the Gullenstrand, as it sliced through the tumultuous waters of the North Atlantic. The salty wind tangled in his golden hair and stung his eyes, igniting a spirit of adventure that burned brightly within him. Young and brimming with dreams, he had long been captivated by tales told in the mead hall, stories of rich lands to the west, untouched by man. The ship creaked under the weight of supplies, barrels of salted fish and mead, sacks of grain, iron tools, and weapons to defend against lurking threats. At his side was a crew of 30 men, their battle-weary faces reflecting loyalty and an unquenchable thirst for glory. They were warriors, seasoned seafarers, some who had sailed with his father, Eric the Red, on prior journeys, each one with his own tale of valor intertwined with sagas of fierce gods and indomitable beasts. Yet no one possessed a glimpse of the horrors that awaited them on the shores of the mythical Vinland. As Leif studied the endless horizon, the midnight sky meeting the churning waves, memories of stormy nights flooded his mind. A tempest had nearly swallowed the ship, leaving behind the skeletal remnants of their hopes and one forever lost shipmate. But something within him, a primal chord urging him onward, drowned out the chaotic echoes of past misfortune. Leif, warned Eric the Black, an elder with a weathered face and a beard thick as a bear's pelt. You have guided us this far, but what fortune do you truly believe we'll find? A courageous smile spread across Leif's lips. I harbor faith, Eric. When we lay eyes on this land, our resplendent reward will be bounteous, a place where our children will thrive. A grunt escaped Eric's lips, laden with ancient wisdom. I have heard whispers from the ancients. They echo of creatures lurking in the west, things that the gods would shun. Leif waved away the notion with a chuckle. My elder, those are mere fables spun to terrify children. We are Norsemen. We shall embrace whatever lurks in the dark. Yet as uncertainty coiled around Leif's heart, a fateful premonition flickered. A shadow of what he would soon encounter writhed in the depths of his mind. Before the Gullenstrand embarked on its perilous journey, it was important to understand the lineage from which these warriors hailed. The history of the Vikings was steeped in tales of fearlessness and valor. Bred from the chill winds of fjords and the harshness of storms, these men embraced the ideals of bravery that defined their very existence. Raised on the legends of their forefathers, they believed that dying in battle would grant them entry into Valhalla, the Viking heaven, a glorious hall where fallen warriors feasted and fought alongside the gods themselves. To the Vikings, honorable death was not an endpoint, but the ultimate ambition. Their souls yearned for the embrace of Odin, the All-Father, where they would partake in the eternal dance of combat and camaraderie. Each warrior carried his own spirit of the raven, an emblem of their devotion to Odin. It was said that those who died bravely in battle would be welcomed into the great hall where valorous tales echoed and laughter reverberated like the hum of war drums. To die a noble death was to achieve the highest honor, to be fulfilled in the eyes of the gods who watched over them from the heights of Asgard. At every gathering, young men listened intently as elder warriors recounted tales of comrades lost in glorious battle, inspiring new generations to embrace the art of combat, to wield their axes and swords with pride and finesse. Those stories transcended mere history. They were the flames that ignited a thirst for adventure and conquest, binding Viking hearts with a communal spirit that could withstand time's unyielding passage. As their ship swayed gently in the water, the crew felt the whispers of their ancestors at their backs, pushing them toward the promise of glory and conquest, a destiny that echoed within each warrior's soul. Unbeknownst to Leif and his crew, the land they were approaching was already home to an ancient race, creatures misunderstood by any who might discuss them in hushed tones. These sentinels of the forest, known as giants by the Vikings, were beings of immense size, but possessed a consciousness that paralleled humanity's in profound ways. Their origins were as enigmatic as time itself, lost to the annals of history, even among their own kind. The giants had existed for eons, born not merely of flesh and bone, but perfectly designed biological adaptations that allowed them to commune with the natural world in ways long lost to modern man. Whispers of their powers veiled the ancient grooves of every tree, and the whispers of the winds told tales that shaped their understanding of existence. Without knowing precisely how they had come to be, the giants viewed themselves as guardians. They had adapted to their environment with a deep-rooted connection to the land. Able to feel the pulse of the earth beneath their feet, they understood the movements of flora and fauna in ways that transcended language. Their senses intertwined with the forest, enabling them to predict changes in the weather and discern when animals were in distress. This innate wisdom passed through generations, fostering an intimate bond with nature, a symbiotic relationship that echoed with the energies around them. In their solitude, they nurtured vibrant ecosystems, cultivating the land with ancient techniques passed down through time immemorial. They shared an understanding of healing, both physical and spiritual, using their vast knowledge of medicinal flora. Where Vikings relied on iron blades, the giants wielded nature's own gifts, far more potent due to their innate connection. Through seasons of growth and decay, they practiced rituals honoring the earth, celebrating the balance of existence. These were not mere performances, but sacred observances expressing gratitude for the life that coursed through the forest, a timeless dance dedicated to the energy that nourished them. However, the giants understood the fragility of peace that descended upon Vinland. A menacing storm brewed on the horizon with the approach of Leif and his warriors. Fear of invasion stirred solemnity amid the giants, who grasped the gravity of what was coming. Deep-rooted in their consciousness was the belief that any disturbance of their sacred land would invoke a long-sealed enchantment. Their power might be unleashed upon the intruders, and the ancient harmony they had maintained with nature would be shattered. Little did the giants know that their fate would intertwine with Leif and his crew, the earthy aroma of dampness and life clinging to the sharp, salty air. The crew spilled onto the land like a dam bursting under pressure, marveling at the breathtaking beauty surrounding them. Towering trees, their trunks as thick as castle walls, loomed like silent sentinels over the entrance to a vast wilderness. Leif stood at the shoreline, awestruck by the pristine landscape before him. The air was saturated with the scent of pine and fertile earth, and rivers swirled with fish, their silvery bodies darting just below the shimmering surface. A veritable banquet, awaiting discovery. In reverence of this newfound paradise, the men dubbed it Vinland, enchanted by the wild grapes that hung in abundance from vine to vine, promising both sustenance and prosperity. Yet this pastoral beauty seemed untouched, not only by man, but by the hand of nature. A heavy and expectant silence lingered in the air, etching an unsettling tension upon Leif's heart, a shadow of dread that hovered just beyond their understanding. As excitement coursed through them, the crew formed a line, positioning themselves along the sandy beach, eager to explore this new land. However, as they advanced, something stirred in the thickets of the dense forest nearby. A low growl rumbled, reverberating in the cool morning air. Before them emerged towering figures. The giants stood at the tree line, their intimidating size and rippling muscles conveying an expression of intimidating aggression. The warriors froze momentarily, their collective heartbeat quickening in their chests as they absorbed the sight before them. Eyes wide, each Viking grasped their weapon tighter, suddenly aware that they had crossed into a domain occupied by beings far more colossal and fearsome than they had ever anticipated. The giants' massive forms loomed like shadows on the bright horizon, cloaked in the vibrant colors of the trees around them, swaying slightly as they judged this new group of intruders. With every step the Vikings took, the giants released rumbling growls that echoed ominously, a stark warning cloaked in raw power. A young warrior named Sigvard, usually brimming with bravado, felt fear seep into his veins. "Leif," he uttered, the quiver in his voice betraying his usual confidence. "We should retreat. They seem aggressive." "No," Leif barked back, finding his resolve, fire igniting under the fear. "We didn't come this far to cower like children. Forward." As they advanced, the giants stepped forward, their expression shifting to one of fierce protectiveness. The tension crackled in the air, the growls morphing into guttural roars that rippled through the forest. The sound resonated deeply within each Viking's core, awakening primal fears of facing something ancient and untamed. Suddenly, with a deafening crash, one of the giants swung a colossal arm, sending a nearby tree crashing down to the ground. The sheer force sent vibrations shuddering through the sand beneath their feet. Panic flooded the Vikings. For the first time in their lives, they felt the cold hand of fear grasp them. "Back to the ship," shouted Eric the Black, fear overshadowing his usual wisdom. The warriors hesitated, glancing between the furious giants and their captain. But before they could retreat completely, Leif shouted again, "Hold steady, brothers. We will not be driven from this land by fear." One of the giants, larger and more imposing than the rest, stepped forward, its deep-set eyes narrowing as it focused on Leif. The air thickened as the lines between aggression and understanding blurred, suspended within the tension. It let out a bellowing roar, an ancient sound filled with a mix of anger and intimidation that made the ground shake and sent a rush of unease coursing through every Viking's body. In that pivotal moment, Leif felt something stir inside him, a slow understanding of the weight of this moment. "Wait," he raised his voice, uncertain if anyone would hear him over the tumult. "We did not come to do harm. We seek only what you possess, a rightful place to thrive." Seeing the giant's aggressive stance soften slightly, Leif sensed a shift. He stepped forward, weapon lowered, heart pounding, but voice steady. "We honor warriors as your strength is revered. We come seeking a bond, an alliance forged in respect." The giants' growls turned to murmurs, exchanging glances among themselves as Leif's words hung in the air. The overwhelming noise began to fade, and with it, the tribe's fierce battle cries diminished. Slowly, one of the giants, slightly less imposing than the immense chieftain, took a tentative step closer. With a rumbling sound, it echoed the wisdom of its kind, speaking in a tongue long forgotten to humankind. Leif stood his ground, refusing to show weakness, committing his gaze firmly upon the giant leader. "We share a connection to this land. We are not here to conquer, but to grow as stewards within it." His fearless assertion resonated through the silence. Hope flickered in the hearts of the men. A slow, cautious recognition stirred in the giant's eyes, the lines of tension softening as understanding permeated the thick atmosphere. In the days that followed, a tenuous alliance formed between Leif's crew and the towering guardians of the land. The men were astonished as the giants demonstrated their knowledge of medicine, revealing healing plants that the Vikings had never encountered. They learned to craft potent tonics and poultices from the roots and herbs native to the forest, learning how the culture had thrived alongside nature's bounties. The Vikings and giants collaborated, sharing wisdom that melded their respective strengths. Together they began to understand the rhythm of the land, the cycles that governed growth and decay. The beasts guided the Vikings to sacred groves brimming with medicinal herbs, teaching them how to harness their potency. You see, a gentle giant, recognized as the tribe's healer, spoke, its voice rumbling and deep yet soothing. "The forest provides many gifts, and through balance we may heal and flourish." The giant demonstrated how to create tinctures, deeply rooted in the shamanic practices of its tribe, imparting the knowledge of nature's healing power that could remedy both physical and spiritual ailments. Leif watched in awe as warriors who once engaged in conflict shifted into sincere collaboration. Children began to learn the ways of healing plants while needing less time in mourning and despair. For through shared knowledge, they began to cultivate hope. Knowledge flourished, weaving through the hearts of those who had once stood as adversaries, forming bonds that echoed deeply. As they set up a new settlement, the landscape hummed with rejuvenated energy. A mix of fear and trepidation transformed into learning and respect. Leif stood on the cliffs overlooking their growing village, strengthened by his people's belief that they would prove worthy guardians of both their heritage and this new land. But peace, as fleeting as it was, became threatened once again. Rumors floated across the waters of marauding Viking factions sailing from distant shores, men blinded by greed and eager to exploit the newfound wealth of Vinland. Leif sensed an urgency arising. He gathered both the giants and his warriors under the crescent moon, determination weighing heavy in the air. We must prepare ourselves. A storm is coming, and it seeks to steal our future. The giants' massive forms glimmered under the starlit sky as they listened intently, the sharp lines of their muscles shifting with tension. We must not allow history to repeat itself, Leif continued, his eyes scanning the faces around him, both human and beast. Together, we can stand strong against this new threat. The chieftain stepped forward, raising its enormous hand in solidarity. The assembly of players, united by shared knowledge and purpose, prepared together, a coalition of strength and wisdom. When the marauders finally landed, dark shapes emerged from distant ships, stepping ashore with arrogance clinging to them like a cloak. They had come to seize what they believed to be bounty ripe for the taking. But they had not anticipated the guardians of Vinland, the towering figures ready to defend their land, united with the warriors of the north. Leif stood before his gathered group, heart racing as he addressed the assembly of warriors and giants. "Stand firm. Today we protect our home together." The clash began, and it was like the crashing of thunder. The marauders charged with grim determination, only to be met with the towering forms of the giants, who moved like shadows against the rising sun. Etched with determination, the giants' massive limbs coiled like springs, and with unnatural speed, they unleashed their fury. The first marauder charged forward, axe aloft, but before he could even raise his weapon, a giant swept forward, arms working in perfect synchronization with his brethren. The immense being moved with agility that belied its size, stepping into the marauder's path. In a single fluent motion, it slammed its fist down, smashing the ground and sending the attacker crashing back into the ranks of his companions like a ragdoll caught in a storm. Leif observed in awe as the giants fought. They communicated without words, a collective consciousness guiding their every action. It was clear they anticipated each other's moves, seamlessly flanking marauders in a deadly dance of unity. The giants moved as if they shared one mind, their resilience radiating in harmony, leaving the Vikings stunned at the display of strength and cohesion. One giant, towering above the battlefield, plucked a massive tree trunk from the ground. In one motion, it swung the trunk through the ranks of marauders, clearing out a swath of attackers like wheat before a scythe. The men were sent sprawling, caught in the tempest of brute force and precision. Leif gritted his teeth, his heart pounding. The sounds of battle overwhelmed the senses, shouts of Vikings blending with the grunts and howls of massive beings. The sheer power of the giants stunned the marauders, who began to stumble backward, bewildered by the ferocity and unity opposing them. Yet even amid the chaos, an icy realization crept into Leif's mind. As he witnessed the giants take on an entire company of marauders, each strike showcasing their unmatched coordination, it became terrifyingly clear. How could his men have ever stood a chance against such formidable opponents had there been no alliance formed? If the giants had seemed hostile during their first encounter, they would have overwhelmed the Vikings before they even had a moment to call for retreat. Just then, a marauder, encouraged by his ferocity, sought to strike at Leif himself, bounding forward with a fierce yell. But before Leif could even react, one of the giants captured the marauder mid-stride. In a flash, it leaned low, arms moving nearly in sync with the attacker to anticipate the angle of his blow. With one swift motion, the giant caught the marauder's wrist, twisting it painfully until the weapon slipped to the ground. The creature then lifted the man effortlessly and hurled him aside, sending the marauder sprawling into a nearby rock formation. The giants did not waver, their collective spirit embodying instincts honed through ages of connection with the land. This was a true battle of survival, a vivid display of warriors banding together, mighty sentinels against looming shadows. The marauders, recognizing the futility of the fight, began to panic. Leif felt his own resolve sharpen as he fought alongside the giants. Their movements were fluid, harmonious, and in sharp contrast to the marauders, whose formations were collapsing like a house of cards. The giants trained their focus and drew strength from one another, their collective consciousness guiding their strikes effortlessly. Leif's own men rallied behind him, inspired by the giants, their spirits rekindled. With each powerful swing of the giants' massive arms, enemy warriors fell, retreating from the determination imbued in the air. It became a display, one where Viking courage paired with monstrous strength created an irresistible force that crushed the marauders underfoot. As the battle surged forwards relentlessly, Leif grappled with his newfound understanding. If they had engaged the giants without forging this bond, it would have ended not with bravery, but with utter devastation. Each giant became not just a defender, but a protector of what they had built together, and Leif understood that their unity might very well reshape the future. When the last of the marauders fled back to their ships, the winds resonated with victory. Leif stood among the towering giants, chest heaving as he marveled at the power of what they had forged. They protected their land, their home, unfurling a promise that had only just begun to bloom. As dawn's first light broke upon the horizon, the remnants of battle scattered upon the ground painted a story of triumph. Those who had aimed to wreak havoc faced the force of unity. The combined strength and wisdom of both giants and Vikings had thwarted the marauders. Breathing heavily, Leif surveyed the remnants of the clash. The giants, standing tall, loomed over the fallen with a sense of protection. Today, we have proven that greed cannot thrive where the spirit of unity flourishes, he declared, pride filling his voice. We stand as guardians together, promising to protect what is ours. Cheers erupted as men and beasts celebrated their unity, a chorus of strength that resonated across the hills and valleys, echoing with the hopes of a new beginning. In the days that followed, Leif recognized the change that had woven through the hearts of both the Vikings and their giant allies. They had established a culture of care, one that honored the presence of sacred healing and tradition, interwoven with the respect they had grown for the land itself. As healing rituals were shared between their cultures, the shamanic practices of the giants transformed into a profound understanding. Every medicinal herb became a lesson, and every healing plant a bridge that connected their worlds. Leif watched in reverence as his people turned fear into reverence, integrating the giants' knowledge of the forest into their own lives. They established a collective identity, a blend of histories that celebrated empathetic care in the face of adversity. The promise to care for each other birthed from enduring understanding. Years passed in the rich embrace of Vinland, the land transforming under the stewardship of its newfound inhabitants. The towering giants and the brave Vikings forged a legacy that would echo through the ages. Children grew up under the watchful gaze of their colossal protectors, learning not only the skills of survival, but the values of respect, cooperation, and understanding. Around the great bonfires, stories were held sacred. The elders recalled the days of tension and fear, tales woven with threads of courage and unity that imbued the heart of the community with resilience. Each evening, children gathered to hear the sagas of Leif Erikson and the Guardians, their eyes wide with wonder as they imagined giant hands sheltering them under the vast skies and the laughter of friends spiraling through the treetops. As the seasons turned, their culture blossomed, blending the ancient shamanic practices of the giants with the storytelling traditions of the Vikings. Healing rituals became central to their lives. The medicinal herbs shared from giant to human nurtured a mutual dependency that preserved not just physical health but emotional well-being. In time, Vinland became known not merely as a new home, but as a sanctuary for those seeking refuge from war and desolation. Stragglers and wanderers, tired of conflict, arrived to find a community living in communion with nature and each other, a testament to the strength found in unity. Leif, now an elder with hair streaked in silver, often stood atop the cliffs overlooking the sprawling territory they had built together. As he reflected on the journey that had led them here, he marveled at the intertwining lives beneath him. The echoes of children playing resonated in joyous laughter, while giants mentored them, their colossal forms a shield against any lingering fears. "Together we become more," he often reminded those who would listen. Vikings who had once prided themselves on valor alone, and the gentle giants who taught that strength could be as nurturing as it was powerful. They learned that daunting tasks were best approached with a gentle hand and a compassionate heart. On stormy nights, folklore would tell of storms as gods' reminders of their guardianship over Vinland, as clouds rumbled and rain fell like tears of joy, blessing the land. The growing settlements spread with loving hands and grateful hearts, gently nurturing their environment in a dance with nature. Several decades later, as the twilight of life began to touch Leif's shadow, he looked to the horizon where the sun set in hues of crimson and gold. The discovery that had brought them here was no longer stray destiny, but rather a flowering of cultures and spirits entwined through shared history. One evening, surrounded by children, giants, and fellow villagers, Leif knew that the unity they had embraced and sustained had become the very essence of Vinland itself, a living legacy that would be told for generations, thriving within ever-growing hearts. As stories became legends, and legends transformed into myths, the memory of the giants did not fade, but remained embedded in the soil, the trees, and the whispers of the wind. The people of Vinland would continue honoring the guardians, ensuring that both men and giants were celebrated as stewards of a world rich with life. And thus, the saga of Vinland was forever etched in the annals of time, not just as a story of survival, but as a harmonious dance where two disparate worlds converged, leaving an indelible mark on history, forever guiding the way for those who would seek to join hands in unity and live as guardians of the earth.